I walked out and we were even in the nicer spot down there, and one of the girls that I just kind of got to know while I was there, and I was like, can I walk out of this hotel without someone asking me for something? I did give $1 to one homeless guy because he said good morning. I was like, good morning, and I hope you have a nice day. And it was like, you know what? You get $1.
But no, they would follow us, they would hassle us and yell at us.
Pretty aggressive.
It was pretty aggressive.
Sorry, what were you going to say?
Those were the days on Main Street. Main aside from
Outside of Portland.
Well, just it's kind of that big stretch of blocks right there.
Yeah,
because when you went down the other ones, it was like a completely different vibe.
Yeah, it was very weird.
They were aggressive.
Yeah, coastal Duluth is, like I said, is how I would describe it. Very, very industrial, kind of blue collar, because it was its own fishing village.
The seafood was, okay, so our meal at the conference was lobster. Like, how could you couldn't even afford to do that in Minnesota, right?
Yeah.
And so then after we go through, we were kind of sitting on the end, and the one lady, she's like, there's more over there. She's like, just go get more. So we had like 2 lobsters for dinner, for the conference. And then I had stuffed lobster there, which I had never heard of, but the lobster and the stuffings in it, like crab and everything and stuff. Oh my gosh. I could have gained 900 pounds if I would have stayed there.
Yeah.
Seafood's good and it's cheap because obviously it's right there.
It's right there. We're all waiting. And time.
All right, I am going to call this work session on April 20th to order. Up first, we have the 10-year financial plan and the plan update process overview. Mr. Mareck.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So we're pleased to be bringing this to you a little bit earlier in the year. The kickoff is kind of around the same time, but you'll see a succession of the staffing plan tonight, and then your next several work sessions have items. So we think that this will hopefully put you in a better position to navigate the budget season independently of the long-term financial plan. A new slide that we're kind of putting together this year is just kind of rooting you in kind of the importance of this 10-year financial plan. If you look at the financial plan, your strategic plan, and your comp plan, fundamentally, I would offer that those are the kind of the 3 cornerstones of how you kind of build your vision for the community. The budget, the ordinances, policies, etc., purchasing, those are the kind of the day-to-day or your meeting-to-meeting things. And then eventually you have a team of staff that go ahead and implement, do customer service, service delivery, etc. And so as you start talking about this 10-year financial plan, a lot of these pieces, since we've been doing this for several years now, should seem pretty familiar. So we prepare the plan with assistance from Northland. Each year we add a year, so right now we're planning from 2027 through 2036, so 2036. This is a new year. We look at all types of planning inputs, so population growth, market value growth, inflation, etc. And we consider those for adjustment. This isn't a budget, so you're not pre-approving anything. This is an instrument for you to take a snapshot in time and say, how does this make me feel? We're hoping that this inspires a conversation and dialogue amongst the council tonight of what you feel good about, what makes you feel uncertain, what information that you need to help you facilitate short and long-term decisions for the city. We are in a position, and I've highlighted a few, where you really have some generational type capital improvements. They don't come along every day. I would also offer that you've been talking about them for a number of years, so hopefully there's a sense of security in that. So the first step is the council's presented with those draft plans, so you'll see the staffing piece tonight, and then the balance of the plans at your upcoming sessions. Then based on that feedback, we input kind of final draft models or share that with Northland. That plan that is presented, it should give you outputs related to tax rate impacts, user rate impacts, etc. And then finally, when you're comfortable with that final plan document, it's adopted later on this summer, probably June or July of this year, and then we start the process again 6 months later. So here's your planning cycles, and this is where I think there's maybe a little bit more of a swell of impactful decisions to be made in this upcoming process. This is an example of staffing and that process up from conceptual to annual budget. And there are a couple of projects that are in that annual budget piece. We're not necessarily going to be talking about them tonight as far as like independent plans. I'll give you a little bit of a preview, but when you think about certified levy, which the community's been talking about for a decade, but really intently for the last 10, public services facility, and then the Southwest infrastructure project. Those are 3 projects that are getting to that budget. Do you bond? What are the questions that you have? What are the engagement strategies that you want to make sure have occurred? So here's your tentative schedule. So tonight we're doing the process overview and staffing, and then you can see the balance of our tentative schedule. We've left some room if there's some needed work, if you have some different scenarios or alternatives you want discussed in each individual plan. This gives us enough room to come back with some additional feedback based on the feedback that you had and show you some different drafts if that's needed. So kind of diving into one of the bigger projects is our certified levy project. A lot of progress thanks to Aaron Schmidt and the easement acquisition team on that. So we're expecting to bring final MOUs to you at the May 4th meeting. We're still planning construction for this fall. How that's phased and scoped, I think, is to be determined. We have some internal meetings scheduled to kind of get at some of the fundamental pieces that the council discussed at your last work session. And then I think you saw, based on some feedback that we got from Representative Emmer's office, we did submit for some congressionally dedicated funding or spending through Senator Klobuchar and Senator Smith for $3 million. Is that correct? Correct. And so right now that potential funding gap, I know that it's still $3 billion, but want to kind of give a collective pat on the back, especially to Mayor Johnson. It does represent that 81% of the funding is coming from outside resources. Now fundamentally, those are tax dollars and the city of Carver contributes, but they're not local to the city. And so I think anytime that we can do an infrastructure project where at a max 19% is coming from city coffers, that's probably, I would consider that a win. A plan update that we're working on with Northland is that worst case scenario of a $3 million funding gap. So that says you're going to do the project exactly how, as you see the bids come in, exactly how the estimates came in. Fundamentally, that would come from the stormwater fund based on the mechanics of what the best bond fund and how some of the efficiencies that come into bonding for that. And so I asked Northland to just do an exercise of what that would do to our stormwater utility bill, and based on some of the recent increases you made and then the lack of projects in the out years, they are not anticipating any additional increases to your stormwater rates. And again, some of that detail will become more transparent when you see the full work of the plan and the numbers that they put into that. But I just wanted to kind of stop here and give the council some space to discuss and reflect on at least this, if there's any kind of pre-direction that you want staff to consider as we develop a draft plan for you.
Thoughts?
Well, I want to see it going forward as to our original plan. So until we change course, Christy, as you pointed out, I don't want to see prisonscape in the city of Carver. The courtyards, the way those looked.
Can I interrupt you? I think the question is bonding or debt financing the,
It can be any.
okay.
But
Okay,
isn't
never
that
mind.
what we're talking about? We have to do that if we want to keep our original plan.
Well, I think that, in my mind, the question that we're kind of at the turning point of is, do we scale back the project and make it work, or do we go for our original plan and figure out how we're gonna get that additional 3 million?
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
So I guess, yeah.
I'm saying I want to go forward with our original plan, knowing that it might cost us $3 million, and we have to figure out a way to bond that. I can't see a project of this scale and size and economizing it to the point where that is what everyone is going to see. So everyone today, everyone that moves to the community in the next 20, 30 years, that's what they've got to live with. There won't ever be a time to rescale it and try to add those amenities back. Cities typically don't do that. It has to happen at the beginning. So I could have said that in a much shorter sentence.
Sorry for trying to rate it in. I was thinking singularly, like, what are we gonna do?
Yeah, so I want to see it the way we had intended to build it, and let's figure out how we're going to pay for it. Let's do it quickly so it doesn't get more expensive. All right.
Christy?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, that is a scary number to look at, to try and figure out how we're going to fund it. But when we look at the future, the fact that that levy, the project that we're doing is going to be there for, let's just say, 50 years. I mean, we're building
Maybe
something.
150 years.
Right, okay. I won't be here, not even 50, but, so if I am, I won't, I probably know when I'm here. But anyways, I don't know where I am. But anyways, I just think that if we want, let's look at 100 years then. We're building something for 100 years. So if we skimp on it now, that's what it's going to be forever, basically. And I don't think that, I think we worked really hard on kind of the aesthetics of our town and our city and making sure that it looks in a way that's, pleasing. And this is safety, but on the top of it, this is something that everyone is going to have to look at for a really long time. And I just don't think that having bare walls for the next 100 years is what is doing the best that we can for the city, as much as that number is gross.
Lori?
Same sentiment. I would like us to stay with the original plan. I think it's just on my mind a lot more too, just the weather and like, we have great trail connectivity and just seeing some of the other like nearby communities and just something when you see that concrete wall is just nothing draws you there. You're just like, oh, let's keep going. But, I want us to be that destination of like, oh, let's go, I hear water, let's go look at it. Just
And then we have an incident.
okay, from the railing. It's far from the railing, for clarifying.
Okay.
I stated this last time, I'd like to see the cost come down. I don't want to be spending a $3 million gap. But I understand the majority of the council wants to move forward with the plan as is, and if that is the case, then I want the strategic plan to include the worst case scenario for what that would look like for the city.
I agree with Kayla in that $3 million is a lot. So if asked which direction I would go to, I would favor the less expensive option. I will never favor something that looks like prison walls, and we would never have a project that would look like that. But I think that there's something that can be a halfway point, or, these aren't gonna be plain concrete walls, they will be stamped concrete, whatever. All of that said, I think this is the happiest that I've ever been to be overruled and to lose not have a momentum swing with me. So, shoot, I was in the minority, but you're right, we're never gonna take a look at this. I just remember Dan Lannis when we were doing the Jonathan Carver Parkway project and him saying yeah, we're gonna invest in landscaping now because communities never go back and say oh, we've got an extra 6 figures and we're gonna make upgrades to this. I know that would never happen with us or any future council. So I am okay with that. Just adding a little bit more color commentary to what Brent said, we met with Liz, whose last name is escaping me, from Ember's office the Friday for last, when she was home over their spring break. She's one of his DC staffers. And she asked about funding, and I've kind of got a little bit of funding fatigue, right? In terms of like, keep asking and keep asking and keep asking. But she brought it up and she was like, yeah, put in. Emmer's window for congressionally designated spending had closed, but she suggested that we go with Klobuchar and Smith's office, so that's the route that we're taking. That's for their 2027 funding cycle, which it could be another year or more, depending on how things shake out in DC, before that's determined. But I think that, you know, again, to what Brent said, if we get this for 20% of the purchase price, if I said to you, like, do you guys want an iPhone for 80% off? We'd all jump at it, right? So it's still a really good value. And if we found the funding already, which it sounds like Brent has through the stormwater fund, it sounds like we might be closer to funding this than I realized. So I'm excited about that.
Just a point of clarification, Brent. $3 million is not just aesthetic. There were some functional attributes of that, like vehicle access.
Yeah, I wouldn't classify it as aesthetic. I would say it's a change in how you would approach maintenance. So having a railing makes it easier for public services to maintain, but it also looks better.
Understood. I just
Same
want to
with-
have it be clear that it's not $3 million of a beautification project.
No, but
It functionally changes how
correct.
we access it, and also changes our costs.
Great, and that's part of the right
Through the future.
sizing
Right.
exercise we're gonna go through, is make sure that if there is anything that's maybe out of balance with like an aesthetic over like a maintenance feature that looks better, I think we can identify those and then show them to you in kind of a menu form and say, okay, how do you want to proceed? So, and then this is just kind of a graphic depiction of how this project would come together, getting the green and yellow in that phase one. Hopefully, maybe being able to secure phase two, but I would offer the priority area right now is to get the green done because of the regional significance of making sure that we align with the opening of the Miriam Junction Trail Bridge crossing. Anything I'm missing here on this, Aaron?
No.
Moving on to the Southwest Infrastructure Project. A lot of good work by the council in discussing and implementing trunk fees, kind of the way that I think most of you are familiar with development is that on intersection improvements, the developer is responsible for 100% of those improvements. In this case, there's a county road, so there's a county share. If the city wanted to do, this is a case of kind of quote unquote amenities, the more that the city would want to add amenities to this intersection. So think of enhanced landscaping in the middle of the circle, or any type of monumentation similar to JCP and 6. Those would be city costs. This is kind of embedded into the extension of trunk line water and sanitary sewer, so that's where the trunk fees come in. On the amenity parts, that's where the city has in its long-term plan up to about $1 million worth of cost share for the intersection. One of the things that has kind of come up as a little bit of a wrinkle, and I shared a little bit of background with the council, is going north of this intersection to 4th Street West. The city made a pitch to the county to kind of fast track the urbanization of that from a 4-lane road from this intersection to 4th Street West. The county has that in their capital plan, but only as a resurfacing and some modest intersection improvements with turn lanes. And one of the things that we're going to be working out with them over the course of the next few weeks is how that reconciles that for cost, because there is a dramatic cost increase to the city from going from what's called their developer-driven program, which is how they're viewing this now because it's not in their capital plan, to a capital plan project, swinging, like, I think our latest estimate was a $3 million swing. And so I made it clear to county staff that the city doesn't have enough bandwidth in its long-term plan. We haven't identified that cost to that extreme. And so as we go through that, and I've kind of connected with Dave Hemsey, the county administrator, on trying to find a path that's kind of the in-between developer-driven and capital plan, because I would offer it's a long-term cost savings for both the county and the city to consider that now. And it eliminates a little bit of, I think we all are familiar with construction fatigue of people kind of dealing with that on Jonathan Carver Parkway. But at the end of the day, this is an editorial comment by me, but if you have to pay 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 times the cost today to do something that might cost you, that much less in 5 or 6 years, it's hard to kind of wrap your hands around why you would do that today, based on bolted and mixed study information. The need to urbanize that from 4 lanes from this intersection to 4th Street, could be 2035 or later. So you could be looking at 10, 15 years before that is warranted or needed. So again, I'll give you a little bit of space to kind of maybe provide some input on how significant or how much of a priority extending Jonathan Carver Parkway to 4 lanes from this intersection to 4th is, and we'll provide you with feedback either way, but having a line of sight to like how you feel about it would certainly help inform how we approach those conversations with the county highway department.
Thoughts? Christy?
Yeah. So is someone else going to kind of?
I'll start. No one likes to see fresh asphalt torn up, and I understand that, but when you'll hear me say this a million times, we have big budget things in the very, very short term. And if it's going to cost us significantly more to do it now rather than to wait until we do it on the county's timeline, I'd rather wait and do it on the county's timeline.
I'll add to that. I want to make sure that it's on the county's timeline. It feels like they're kind of kicking the can down the road a little bit with this. This 100% would be the right time to do this. And we don't have the budget for it. Nor do I feel that we should pay the higher split because of them saying that it's not in their plan. It's a bummer. It feels like we kind of went down one path and then there was like a last minute turn with this realization. But I agree that unfortunately it just isn't in the budget right now. I take that back. It's not that it isn't in the budget, but I feel strongly that we shouldn't be paying more than the cost share that we paid for phase 1 of the Jonathan Carver Parkway project, which is a question that I asked 2 weeks ago. And I was told, no, it'll be the same. So.
I believe what you were told was worst case scenario, it's the same.
Right. Glad you got a better memory than me, but it's important that I did ask that question because I was kind of reading the tea leaves and thought that was afraid that this was how it was gonna end up.
I have a question. When you say that the county talks about this being development driven, right? So we have a development that will begin out here. Is it possible then that they're going to move, we think they may move that up, being that this development will be coming in?
Yeah, when they say development driven, it's in terms of they have a cost participation policy, and there are 2 buckets of, there's a sheet that has a grid that says curb is split this much and trail is split. And so there's a developer driven bucket and then there's the CIP bucket. And if it's not in their 5-year CIP, then it by default goes into the developer driven bucket. And so I think we can certainly be advocates to have it moved up, but on the other side, devil's advocate is We're also telling them, based on Bolton and Mink's analysis, that the improvements actually aren't like needed for maybe 10 to 15 years. So there is a space for them to like reasonably say, we're not gonna include it until 2035, or we're just gonna monitor it and see how things go. But, you know, we also shared, there isn't a way for us to, you'll love this, there isn't a nexus between what
Old scars from.
what the developer
Yes.
is doing, so we can't, the city can't fundamentally charge back these costs to Summerfield because we're chasing a, you know, 4-lane urbanization of a county road up, you know, a half a mile. And they were good about that. You also, like, probably if you saw like the figure that I included to Linden, it is marked on their CIP as a eligible for their like sales tax or transportation tax. I get the two kind of confused. I have asked them just to contemplate, could we use that as maybe a accelerator to try to get that done. I obviously don't know the mechanics of what their fund balance is and what they're attributing some of those revenues to. And they're doing huge projects on 212 and 5, and so I don't want to be too cavalier. But we're at least asking the questions. Dave Hemsey's facilitating a workshop with Linda and all the city administrators in the county to have a conversation about that and kind of educate us on how their plan is kind of going to be rolled out. So I think good things are coming. I am not hopeful that it's going to like impact like this project based on the turnaround time that we need to facilitate, you know, Summerfield developing.
Do you know, what is it that goes from downtown Chaska up the hill, the old 212, is that 61?
Correct.
Do either one of you guys know what the cost share arrangement is for that project?
They're still working through that. I think the county has turned back funds, because that used to be a
Oh, state.
It was a
state
state
federal,
revenue.
so there is a source of revenue. I connected with Matt on that, so I don't have the full detail other than I know the developer's paying for intersection improvements. And Chaska uses a different funding tool for their roads. They have like a transportation fee that they collect off development, so they do the road construction and not the developer. I don't know all of the mechanics behind it.
Does our cost share change per project? Or is it, excuse me, is it pretty typical between this road to that road? We pay this percent, they pay that percent?
Yeah, it's pretty typical if the fundamentals of the project
Okay.
are the same. You know, it goes up, if you have like a 2-lane roundabout, the costs go up, but the percentage is usually, what, 75-25 on a.
Give or take, yeah.
Okay, so if we're gonna, I'm not for moving ahead on our, kind of, I guess, on our own with this and pushing ahead, only because I also think there's a little bit, if we start pushing it and wanting to fund things that we're saying, well, we just want it now, okay, we're gonna get it now, and we've got enough money, and don't worry, we're just gonna take care of our own things. And I think that just makes me think for the future, what does cost share look like for the future?
What's the
If we
precedent?
start just kind of having that, I want it right now, so I'm gonna have it right now mentality, so I think I'm
Yeah.
not prepared for that.
The intersection itself, Brent, is it, as of right now, are they planning on building it under the assumption that that road is gonna be 4 lanes, or are they building it smaller, given that it's 2 lanes now?
I'll pitch that to you.
Does my question make sense?
Right now, it's laid out for the 4-lane
Okay,
configuration.
so they would be building it prepared for 4 lanes, even though there's only 2.
Correct.
Which seems like a silly exercise. We're gonna expand the road to 4 lanes and then narrow
Yeah.
it down on the other side of the
Immediately.
roundabout, but that's an
But that'll
editorial
slow some
comment.
traffic down probably then.
Yes.
Coming down the hill.
But there's some big swings in here, depending upon even where like the project scope starts and ends. Because I think, you know, we could be in a position where the county pays for 50% of the pedestrian underpass or 0% of the pedestrian underpass. So that's a $325,000 swing right there. So there's some work to do. Linden and the county have been reasonable in the past. I don't know that they will be on this one. It could be just a matter of, you know, they don't have the funds to complete a project of that scale. And what I mentioned to Linden is, you know, we probably should have had this conversation earlier, because I thought it would have been a slam dunk. It was in their capital plan. It turns out they had an unfortunate situation with a mat being mislabeled, so it just kind of created some unfulfilled expectations, unfortunately.
And I asked about it years ago and was told, yeah, it's in the plan. We'll take care of it. We're just waiting on City of Carver to get on it, so. Maybe a lot of crisscross communication, unfortunately. But I like what you're saying. It's kind of like, I think if we start saying, sure, we'll pay for it, then that's a really bad precedent to start. And we're looking at our neighboring communities. There's stuff going on in Victoria, there's stuff going on in Chaska, Chanhassen, you name it. I think we can be patient on this one and wait until it's our turn.
Anybody else on this?
I have a few things.
Yeah.
I'm in the same where I'd rather be patient and have it align, get the 4-lane when they also see a need for it.
Sure.
And so I'm good with that. I would like to see more visibility on what their plan is or what, and I just don't understand enough. Like, I now finally get how like schools get the budgeting and how like they plan ahead for building. But I feel like with the county, I don't always know, so I'm starting to learn about it. But you had that email that was their 2023 to 2031 road and bridge construction plan. But I would like to like hear more from them on, you know, if, or maybe just that email with the slide just says it all, which is, but what is very, very disappointing is even statewide, our city's known to have a lot of growth. And we do not have one of their little DD development driven symbols. They've got one in Chaska, kind of Waconia Lake Town border, and then one in Chan.
We don't want that. Like that means
Okay.
that they're.
That's what I need help with.
Yeah, that's where like they're doing a project and it's gonna be under that development driven cost partition policy. So they're just noting it because that impacts how their level of funding for that project.
Yep.
I mean, it's not that we don't want one, it's just financially it's more burdensome for the developer as opposed to like a pure capital project that doesn't have any
do this
designated-
anyway.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Does it have anything, and I know there's significant road projects, but that's, with you have Highway 5 to 12, you get a lot of additional funding.
Right, and that's kind of you can pick these kind of policies apart because fundamentally I would say everything on that plan, or not everything, but 90% of that plan is development driven. I mean, we don't expand Jonathan Carver Parkway going north on 6th Street if there is no development. Maybe it gets a mill and overlay, but it's not going from 2 to 4 lanes. So like the whole kind of like
Just for fun.
methodology of it kind of gets blown apart. It's the best attempt by the county to be consistent, because as you can imagine, you know, we and every other city are the first in line to say, what are they doing over there and why isn't our deal the same as theirs? So they put that policy together to try to establish some consistency of funding some of these projects.
Almost it would be better if it was not development driven, but development prioritized.
You'll let the county know.
Well, no, it makes more sense that way. The idea is like, look, everything's being driven by development, but this is specifically having to be prioritized because of the scale of it. But, yeah.
All right. Public services facility, another, I would offer kind of generational project. So within the existing capital plan and then based on the study, we have a 20-year build at a $35 million project. That's prorated between general fund, water fund, and sanitary sewer fund. The estimated general fund debt portion on that is about 1.5 million. As you know, we acquired land last year for that. We're expecting water and sanitary sewer to be available late 2027. We just had a meeting about that.
Yep.
We're in design development. We're starting to get some cost information. We're meeting later in the week with Tara and Ortel. As we kind of get ready to deliver, I would say, like the design development portion to the council in the summer, and then start with community engagement with the open house and some activities that we're going to be working on and planning for. There is a real, I think, like a kind of a big gulp, if you will, on kind of how you want to move forward with this project. Andrew and I were talking about that this morning. Just in going from like a spring of 27 bid opening to a fall of 27 bid opening, Tara was estimating about $1.7 million worth of like bid variance in just those 6 months. And so
To wait, or which one do you want?
to wait.
Okay.
So if you bid in the spring of 27, let's just say that's zero. If you bid in the fall of 27, it's at 1.7 plus that zero. Are you tracking me?
It's gonna be more
Yeah.
expensive the
Yeah.
longer we wait.
Correct.
Yeah,
And
Just
so-
like the levy was.
I'm just saying, what in 3 months costs $1 million more?
well, and so it's for like, I would say like you as elected officials, it's a real, I think it's just a hard decision pattern. If you know that you're going to build it and you're comfortable with the size, kind of navigating when to push the button after you complete, like the required processes. In a lot of instances, and this is why I offer that, a lot of instances, if you can save money by waiting. If I think about my personal budget, we can't afford to finish the basement. We put money aside and eventually we save up enough where we can hopefully do it on our own. In this one, I don't know if the math works out where if you said, well, we're not quite ready in 27 or 28, let's wait till 2030. And I'm not offering when to do it, I'm just wanting to point out that there's kind of a tricky little fundamental in there that I want you to be aware of as you think about when the right time is to do this. And again, this is all predicated on you liking the size of the building, liking how it's laid out, being comfortable with the overall cost as much as you can reasonably do that. We have a lot of information to give you. But having gotten that information this morning from Tara related to like the cost escalation in just a matter of like 6 months, gave me a little bit of a lump in my throat. And there's some things that Andrew and I have talked about doing already that we think we can push that number down, but also, I was talking to Lynn about it later in the day, it's like, we don't want to be in a position where we're over-promising and under-delivering on budget, and so how, you want a project that you're comfortable with, but you don't want to keep scrunching that number down to a point where you don't think you can actually deliver on that number. So at the end of the day, a lot of variables out there, and I wanted to express that in just this way so that maybe it gives you kind of a line of sight to how we're feeling about it. And if you can share how you're feeling about this project, it'll better inform us how to take our next steps as we deliver that draft floor plan and cost estimate to you this summer.
So I have a question, or just a timeline question.
Mhm.
So we're talking about the current plan year is 2028, and we're talking about the sanitary and water is expected to be here in 2027, right? So then what are we bidding in 2026? That we have, is that what you said? We have to bid something in 2026?
No.
Oh, okay, I missed something there.
We're delivering like the design of the building to
Okay.
you this summer.
Okay,
So fundamentally, like right now we have starting the project in 2028. So you could, you'd probably want to bid it under this current plan, you'd want to bid it in fall of 27 to capture that best bid environment and then wait through the winter so you didn't have to do winter conditions. and then start in the spring of 28. But there's a narrative to, you could start later if you don't think the timing is right, you could start earlier. If you think the timing's never gonna be better, there's a kind of a whole spectrum of decisions that you could make.
So if we're anticipating the water and sanitary is gonna be ready in 2027, are we looking, there's again a variable that gets pushed back to 2028? Or they won't be ready for us to get in? Because I'm just,
Yeah, I mean, not based on kind of our current planning. We're planning on, we've told Summergate, was it September of 27, when they should plan for water and sewer.
okay,
And we're anticipating about a year build on a public service facility. So if you started in the spring of 28, it'd be, ready in 29. If you started in the spring of 27, it would be needed to be hooked up in the spring of 28. So I don't think and that, based on our current timing, there's not probably a situation that's out of the council's control. I mean, you could say we're not gonna extend the water and sewer, and then there's a domino of impacts, but we couldn't get a project completed fast enough for you to be without water and sewer at this point.
okay. I just was curious because the world happens sometimes.
Right.
And so if you were talking about bidding this then in 2027, and we were just talking about spring or fall, which is better, right? That was the year frame?
Well, it could be, I mean, I don't want to be presumptuous. I mean, right now, based on your current plan, it could be fall 27 to start in 28.
What
But
if we
there's a
did-
whole
Sure.
list of ways that you could take it based on your cost sensitivity and how you view the need for public services.
So if we're looking at spring to fall in the same year and $1 million price hike, then does it make sense to bid it into the next year for spring? That gives us more time in 2027 because it says it's not available till late 2027. I don't know the building, because does that need to be in then before the building even begins for construction?
No, they can just
They
tap
can-
it at the, I mean, I think the fundamental question, I think for the council to decide is could you wrap your arms around the idea of starting earlier? Is that like spring of 27 if the boxes were all checked, or is that premature? I'm not advocating, I'm introducing, so I just want to be clear about
I
that.
have a question. Could
Yeah.
the building be used without water? Like, is it a phase? Like, could you just use it for storage? Or, I mean, what's the minimal, I want to say like minimal viable product?
Probably wouldn't get occupancy if there's no water, because you're gonna get a need for fire protection. That's kind of the big thing for the water.
So, there's nothing you can use it for before that?
No. And again, I'm not looking for the council to
Store salt, maybe you could store salt?
give us,
Not inside a brand new building.
No, I don't want no materials.
So Brent, this
How
seems
about
like a really,
firecrackers?
I'm not want to put words in your mouth here, but this seems like a really simple question. Do we want to get started as soon as we can when we're coming off of a 20%, 19% cost increase on our levy because of a time delay? Why wouldn't we want to go as soon as we can? I mean, the water, the utilities is going to drive that a bit, but if we're ready to go, getting bids so we can start in the spring of 27, why wouldn't we do that? Why would we want to introduce $1 million in cost increase because we want another 6 months to think about it?
yeah, I mean, to your.
Is that the question?
Yeah, I mean, to fine tune it, this is kind of a sensitivity analysis, if you will, and public buildings can be a major source of conflict in communities. We've all probably know of examples, and so I think we do a good job of being deliberate, but we're inside these walls, and so I wanted to use this as a touch point to see, like,
Okay.
is this like we want to see this go move, check all the boxes, but like this is something we're committed to, or is it like, yeah, we're interested, this is kind of a wait and see, keep bringing us the next steps. I just kind of want to get If you
My
feel
vote is-
comfortable.
Yeah,
I'm committed and want to get going. That's my vote.
Yeah, and what, is it possible we have this scenario where I'm committed, I want to get going, we start building as much as we can, and then we get to a point where we're ahead, where whatever, structurally, we have things happening, but we don't, then we're stalled until we get water, and then maybe for like 6 months, the building is just like empty, half done. Is that a
Should.
possibility?
Just one point of clarity that I will make is the sewer and water service is coming off of the same trunk utilities we're sending to Silverfield. So that's all tied together. That's one thing at the end of the day. So the only real risk from a utility standpoint is if that piece went completely sideways and we didn't have a project coming up the hill in 2027.
But we do.
Yeah, I mean,
They've submitted
with
for-
or without the county road improvements, I mean, I think we're committed to getting utilities up the hill.
The only way that you are without water and sewer is if the council doesn't move to do that water and sewer project.
Mhm.
Is there a negative to the city to starting on this timeline? I mean, what is there negative? Like what?
I would say if we get you the plan, you get comfortable with it through the remainder of the summer, and in September, we kick off a robust community engagement. So you have September, October, November, you could even go into December. You could do like a third of the year, 4 months of community engagement. In January, February, you could do the capital plan public hearing. You could get Ortel started on final plans. I mean, you could fundamentally be like ready to like bid this thing out like April, May of 27 if you just said, okay, pending on community engagement and response from the community, 4 months of that is where we're going. But again, this is the worst case. This is 35 million. If you got a plan back that said, 35 million in July. Again, I'm not asking you to do it, but I'm just I'm putting you on the shallow end of the pool so you get comfortable with the water. Like those are the types of decisions you don't have to make tonight, but I wanted to like tee up for you because you're gonna get that plan in June, July, probably, right, Andrew? And those are that's the type of like feedback after you like, again, not that meeting, but as we go into the summer by like Labor Day, I think it would be helpful to have like a strategy from the council of like, this is our vision, pending engagement with residents. We want to see how they feel, but residents are going to want to know how fast you want to go with this because that'll dictate the tax impact, because we'll do analysis based on all, we'll probably get a calculator so people can put their own values.
I
or their
feel like
own-
we're putting a lot of effort or thought into the resident feedback because.
As we should.
As we should. But also, if the biggest risk is we start too soon, like we can't quite figure out the perfect time to get the bid, start, and then know when the utilities will catch up. If we start, and it ends up being we started early, or it would sit empty or sit half done.
There's no scenario for that. That's what Brent said. There's no scenario. If we start in 2027,
Yeah.
it's gonna take a year to build that building. The utilities will be in there in the fall of 2027.
Yeah, I think this is like Mike Stearns County passive aggressive is like, are you really ready to do this type of thing? Because it's one of the things like we've talked about for a long time. It's a lot of money. It's a big decision. I felt like the same way when we were doing the City Hall project of like, you study and study, you do all this engagement, and it's like, okay, we're gonna do it. This is crazy. This is crazy. And so like I just want to get you
I
used
just
to
watched it
that.
last night. The vacation movie.
Yeah.
Chevy Chase.
It's getting you used to that, or getting you ready to have that conversation, because it is a big choice.
Okay, I was thinking like there was a scenario that I was playing out where it's like, I'd be happy to answer, yes, we start early because we're saving whatever X amount of money, but that's this wasn't a tiny
Right.
thing, okay. No, I kind of felt like we already had made the decision to, at least for me, I'm committed to move forward with
In,
the plan already. In the, to get the preliminary work.
I
That
think the
number
question
6
that we're kind
confuses
of
me. Yeah.
volleying back and forth is go out for bid in early 2027 or late 2027, I think is what we've narrowed it down
Early
to.
2027.
Early
is what I wrote.
2027.
Yep.
Okay.
Got you down.
Mine is early 2027 or early 2028. I don't know if spring is the time to bid, it would still be cheaper the spring of 2028 than the fall of 2027, it sounds like.
I don't think so.
Why? Tell me why.
That's
$2 million
what Tara's
more.
telling us, is
Say-
that
okay.
Tara's telling us every year that we wait,
Okay.
that cost escalation keeps going up and compounding. So that's the tough part
Okay.
about this.
Okay, because the way I was, from just what was discussed,
Right,
is
right,
like
right, right.
2026 we're
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
and spring, fall's here, but, spring could maybe be, of 2028 could be in the middle somewhere. you
If we
know?
could bid it now, it'd be great, right? But
Yeah.
we don't have, if you could bid it 10 years ago, it'd be,
Right.
Well,
It's
and,
just-
and on the
The cost of
bottom
bread
it
would also been much less
says, this
10
bid
years
is
ago.
good for 15 years.
It's just always one of those things, right? Like,
I mean, some of it's kind of relevant to inflation though, like, that's everything goes up incrementally like that, so. I mean, it is big, I think we just move forward and I guess we'll see how the numbers come back. It's a big scary project, we've been through a few big scary projects, so here comes another one.
I mean, I just keep coming back to the next slide that Brent has, which is the one more after that.
But wait, we're not there yet. Let's
We're not there.
keep talking
Well,
about
I know, but it's, I guess it might be there, that's there, Brent found it. I keep hearing from residents that they are really concerned about this project pricing them out of Carver. Current residents thinking that they might have to move.
I hear that too.
And that is concerning to me.
Some of it's hard because I've worked in growth cities before also, and this is such a pain point of any city who just kind of starts to hit that 10,000 mark because you've outgrown that little teeny town and you have to have these big things that are coming in. And I mean, I hear the same things, so I don't know what else do we take out? Like, I don't
I
mean
know,
these things.
but part of the problem too is that I'm not just hearing it from longtime residents, I'm hearing it from my neighbors who have only been here 5 years.
But what I'm saying then is are there things outside of these big projects that we dial back as a city?
Yeah.
Because we've got to, I don't know, take a break somewhere, and where is that? Do street projects get pushed back another year? Or I'm not Mount Hope, that one is desperation. But you know what I mean? Like, do we start looking to say maybe we just can't afford it? Like my pockets are getting too light here. So do we say maybe some of these other big chunks that we planned for, maybe they get pushed out a little bit to take some pain off of how much is coming out? And I'm not sure what those are, but I've thought about that too, because we've got some really big things happening that really do need to happen. But then are there some of these other things that we just have to say as a city that we can't afford right now?
Brent, as we're volleying around when in 2027, for purposes of narrowing down the discussion right now, is this graph accurate, or would that bump happen in 2028?
Yeah, this graph reflects the $35 million project with a 2028 start date, so
Okay.
fall of 27 bid. I mean, it's all contingent upon that $35 million number, and just from my memory, I think 22 of that is general fund of that 35, and it's like water is like maybe 9, and sewers the rest, so there's a prorated version just because that's the nature of
Yeah.
public services. A key, and one of the great things about this slide is like the 2027 and 28 budgets are really important for how to like navigate how you're going to prepare for that if you choose to move forward with public services in that way, because I think there's an opportunity to eliminate a little bit of that roller coaster effect and kind of flatten that out and start maybe saving in advance for some levy payments. using that as like either putting it toward the project or one-time capital to bring some of those numbers down.
I have a question. So if we know that we have some big developments coming here, right, that are gonna put a lot more money into our tax base, does that flatten out if we wait another year and some of those start coming on the rolls? Or are we gonna see that big jump?
Does this anticipate the development?
Yes. Okay.
So I mean, that's why it fundamentally goes down in those back years.
Sure. Okay.
And I think if that inflation number was smaller, you could put yourself in a position where it could be close, but we're, you know, just based on what we're seeing or what our history is, we're not gonna collect 1.7 million a year in additional revenue without it impacting other things. So again, that's why this is so complex.
Do you have an opinion on the timeline?
What I will say is, if we are going to break ground if we're gonna break ground 2028, I agree with Erik. I see no reason why not to bid earlier to try and get that smaller number. But my concern is with, are we putting ourselves and our citizens in a position by moving forward with this project in 2028 that is going to make it financially very, very difficult for the people who live in the city?
Just to clarify, I don't think we are saying bid in early 2027 to break ground in 2028.
Well, I'm sorry, bid in early 2027 to break ground. And I'm saying that timeline, give me that year, 6 month, that's a pretty narrow window for deciding to break ground, 2027, 2028, end of 27, beginning of 28. So if we're committed to doing the project in that time frame, yeah, bid earlier and save the 1.7 million, but I'm concerned about the project in general.
I don't know that there's any one of us sitting around this table that isn't concerned about
And I'm
what
not
an
saying-
investment this
yeah.
is gonna be. I mean, this is probably the biggest conversation that we've had of this deck tonight. And unfortunately, the longer we wait, the more expensive it's gonna be. My only thought is I wanna make sure that we have, and what you laid out is fine, but I wanna make sure that we have a really robust resident engagement cycle in this. And then I'm also thinking, like, where do we layer in the levy project's resident engagement process? Because I think for as long as we've been working on that and how we know, and it's always been a goal, I don't wanna lose sight of that, because I bet that our residents have perhaps lost sight of it, unless it's somebody who's been talking to Aaron and his crew, you know, over the
Well, we're
last
planning on
months.
doing that in this summer, like June, July levy, and
Okay.
then the public facility, or public services facility would be in the fall.
Okay, yeah, I like that. I think, you know, this need, and there's nothing about this that's a want. We've all been through the public services building. We literally watch how skinny it is and how you have to like shimmy to get through there. This is definitely a need, and I think if we can save, I think we need to try to save as much money, not only on this, but also kind of skinning down the budget to figure out what we can do to help reduce that bump. And I think that this is the time, because we have a bunch of development that's coming into Carver, and it's gonna be the literal example of Brent talking about those pie pieces that keep getting smaller as these houses and these families come into our community. So, it's gonna be $3 million if we wait 6 months in 2027. Who knows what it's gonna be if we wait until 2028. It hurts my head to think about what it'll be if we wait until 2029 or anything beyond that. Like, so it's never going to get any less expensive.
I do want to follow up something with what Kayla was talking about though. So when we're talking about we need these big projects done, and we all agree that it's painful, nobody wants to add more. When it comes to our taxing, can you go to that slide we were just on? Yeah. So by us saying, okay, yep, it's painful, we don't like it, we're still saying go ahead with it. So to say it's too much and we don't want to have to do this is one thing, but I don't want it to be lip service that we just say, okay, that we don't want to, but okay, we all say aye and we go forward. So what are options of different things in our budgeting that can come out to flatten that curve a little bit? And what can get pushed back a year or two? Again, maybe it is some of the street maintenance, maybe it's something, what are some big chunks that we have in our budget right now that we can look at to say, maybe that has to wait, we just can't have it all right now, because I don't want to lip service the community by saying, oh yeah, we all agree that it's expensive and that, it's really hard, and then not go any further to look at what could maybe help flatten that out a little bit.
Well, that's a good thing. That's exactly what this exercise is supposed to be, because we'll give you each of these buckets, and then you can say, like that, but that could get pushed back, that one needs to get pushed up, etc. That's kind of, we're playing around in the sandbox trying to figure that out. I would also add, like, once we get that number narrowed down, and we'll present you the night that you get like the floor plan and the exterior stuff, we'll give you an idea of what that tax impact would be like on an average household, so that, looking at this, you're not going to be able to tell if that's $50 or $500 or something in between. So we owe you that as a part of that deliberation process.
And then I'll just add that once we get all of the puzzle pieces put into the model, we'll get a draft, and then it'll kind of redo all of these numbers up there based on all the assumptions and the new market values and everything,
So yeah, we can show you, this is what you currently have, this is the proposed update, and you can kind of compare and contrast the impacts, and then see if you want to do some adjustments to lower some impacts, or however you want to manipulate it.
Okay.
Great discussion, that was helpful for us, and for me.
Great, I feel anxious.
No. You got everybody's blood pressure.
Welcome to the club.
One of us feeling better walking out here.
Bring it down.
Yeah, I can't think about anything else right now. But.
Oh, water treatment plant.
Keep on coming.
So, this is something that when we get to that 2030, we'll be talking about, this is something that we've talked about maybe for the last 8 or 9 years. So estimated cost about 18 million. That includes the construction of 2 new wells. Aaron and Andrew and their teams are working on a study to figure out kind of the best location and where to purchase land for that. Aaron, would you mind just kind of giving an overview of what that graph depicts on the right and how that impacts when we need a future plan?
Sure. So what this is, we call this a trigger chart, and basically what we're doing is every year we're tracking our max day demand. So the single max day in a given year, and those are those red dots, okay? And what the red solid line depicts is kind of our projected max day demand as we move forward, and that's based on the comp plan growth projections in our 2040 comp plan. So what Andrew and I are doing is really, we want to see those data points every year to see how we're trending against the projection line, and if we continue to be below the line, that's going to allow us to make decisions of, okay, we can defer this another year or two potentially, but until we see data to support that, it's, we can't really make that decision. So again, this 2031 year is based on the red line growth projected in the comp plan. So if growth goes faster, it could potentially be a little quicker, or if it continues on this trajectory here like we see below the line, then we're probably gonna be okay for another couple of years. That makes sense?
Is the shaded bluish area, is that our water treatment plant?
In this one specifically, it's that the capacity of our wells
I'm
1
sorry,
through
okay.
6.
So is there an overlay of water?
We
treatment
do
plant
have,
capacity?
we have a slide that represents that as well. It's not in this PowerPoint
You'll get
tonight, but yeah,
the
we'll
big
get
presentation later
Okay.
on.
so. But
This is
same
just a
exact thing.
teaser.
Yeah.
Because we're feeling so good walking out of this one. Love to see the sequel.
So you can see here where the red line hits, and now we have drill well 7 in 2027 because, you know, the demands would surpass the capacity of our wells.
2025 max day was 1.4 million, so.
So this is
Yeah.
a representation of what's in your current plan, so you can kind of see how, you know, water, sewer, stormwater rates, et cetera, are impacted by your current plan documents. This is a snapshot. It actually goes out through 2035, the current plan. And so just kind of giving you a flavor, you saw the property tax manager. There's a ton of information in that, and Lynn and Tammy and Jess do a great job of kind of summarizing that, I would say, in bite-sized pieces of information. So, and then a little preview of, based on what you have in your existing long-term plan, this is what you have planned for capital. And again, all these categories are going to be explained in future presentations. But to what Councilmember Conrad was sharing, you can kind of see how like street maintenance is bumping up. And so as you view that presentation and look at this data, you can see how that impacts the budget. Because we have a separate levy amount for our capital expenditures now, so that has a direct impact to what your annual levy would be or will be.
What is facilities 30,000?
So that is half of what we expect for Church by the River to paint, reside, doors, etc. And we're going to do the other half of that budget in 2027.
But other facilities could be anything from like up at the bus station or,
Correct.
yeah.
New carpeting for this building
Yeah,
someday.
yeah.
But that 30,000 was specifically dedicated to the Church by the River, and then that 45,000 in 27 is all for we're anticipating that project is 75,000.
Any more discussion? We've kind of gone through it as we talked about as we've gone through it.
Yeah, that's great.
What's the $75,000 part? Sorry, I don't have all that information right now.
So that's more building a fund balance. I think your first project was shelter replacement in 2029 or 2030.
Yes.
So you're building fund balance to do a larger project.
Okay.
Got what you need from us on that?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, let's talk about the 10-year staffing plan update. Mr. Mareck.
Yeah, so this is an opportunity for some feedback from the council. I'm gonna do a high level, but I can get as much into the weeds as you'd like. I'm gonna start with a focus on some of the changes and highlight those. So we moved a public services technician has been adjusted from a Jan 1 to a July 1 start. You'll see that kind of weaved into a couple of those. That's a way to provide some budget and levy relief rather than funding a complete position. We did that for the sheriff's deputy position, moving that back by 6 months so we can do half of that budget. Admin assistant is reflective of what we feel like is a need or a need assessment, and moving that back by 2 years. Coincidentally, moving the building inspector position up by 2. That's largely based or primarily based on the need for inspection. So that, if any position funds itself, and so we'll just continue to monitor that. I'll get a little bit into the building and facilities maintenance technician, but we feel like there's an opportunity by the time we get to 2033 where it'd be primarily a cost savings actually when you get to what our costs are for outsourcing that work. And then a new position in 2036 for information technology, which is, again, if you remember kind of the slides from the previous one, as a conceptual spot. If you think about what technology needs were back in 2016 to what they are today to what they might be in 2036. I could be a robot doing that work for us, but who knows? Just want to kind of focus on kind of the plan summary. We updated these tables. So estimating our population to be around 13,000 in 2036. So you have a 72% increase in population over that 10 years, and really trying to keep pace with that with staff so that we're not exceeding that. You can see the breakdown by department based on our current state to that future state. And then some of the stuff that we added new, and Lynn and Ashley and Mallory were a big help with this, but we added some data just on our peer city comparisons, and so you can see kind of where we track of employees per capita. So, you know, there was, when I first started, there was quite a bit of a narrative that the city was overstaffed based on our population. And as you can see now, we're probably on the lower end as far as, you know, where we're at for employees per capita, with Delano, Waconia, Corcoran, etc. Having a big number. And then,
Brent, is this the first time we're seeing this?
yes.
Okay, it is super helpful. There would easily be a chance that this was shown before and you just didn't remember, so.
Brand new.
Yeah.
So you can see 2036 would be as if you planned for and implemented everything that's in this policy or in this draft plan for staffing. Again, so that first 2 years is kind of budget conversations, year 3 to 4, you know, really critical review. Once you get past year 4, that's where it gets a little fuzzy. We're making our best guess based on the data that we see. It's kind of a snapshot in time, so we're not offering those are perfect predictions or will be how this plan is going. This kind of doing a general year by year, so this would be the second year in a row we would have no full-time staff ads. And that's I would say, I would offer that's intentional based upon some of the other capital improvements. We had previously pushed back the mechanic that was based on Andrew's input that it, you know, doesn't really pay to try to shoehorn a mechanic into our current space. We're starting that technician in July. I would say like the big piece for the council to be thinking about is navigating that fire chief start July 1 of 2028. I think there's, as we talked about last year, plenty of arguments to be made that you could fully support a full-time fire chief today. In a lot of ways it kind of functions like that, but based on the history of fire departments throughout the country, they just didn't start off that way, and they're slowly integrating into that. And so that remains unchanged for a fire chief in 2028. And then you can see kind of the balance of the position. So other than what I noted previously, you're not seeing any difference in the plan, but I wanted to provide a space for the council to provide input or recommend changes or just offer perspectives on what you're seeing.
I have a question. Can you go a couple slides down where you're looking at the fire chief and where the years that the other cities added? So if I'm looking at this in Chaska and Chan, I mean, obviously they added theirs years ago, but is the estimated population on here the population of when they added the fire chief, or is that current day? Because they're higher than that for current day, right?
Correct.
Okay, so that's the year. So if we're looking at Chaska, Chan, Waconia, which are kind of our like big sisters of cities around here. When I'm looking at the populations where they started, 23,000, and then even you're going down to 12,000. Why did they wait until, because they had to have huge department budgets as well for fire department, so why did they wait so long?
Anecdotally, it's a starting background that time is when there was a real push to like make that a full-time position. There wasn't a lot of examples pre-2010 of cities having full-time fire chiefs, and so I would offer that I can't speak for them, but from the outside looking at it, it became kind of a metro-wide phenomenon or statewide to like have a full-time fire chief. And so I'm sure there's exceptions to that, but that's why you can kind of see like where Victoria's at, where Waconia, Watertown, etc. I don't know. We can reach out to Chaska and Chan. I know those folks really well and ask them. But that's just kind of a...
Okay. It just makes me curious because we were looking here to add one on the very low end of population if we're looking at this table. Now, I'm very supportive of our fire department, but I also want to be, again, we just talked about budget and things like that. So if we're on the low end and we didn't want to shoehorn a mechanic into a building that we don't have yet, do we wait for the fire chief until they have the whole building up there? You know, until we basically make that cut. Now, you're out, Public Works is out here doing theirs. They've got, you know, we've got Andrew, but then we start adding staff out there and we wait to do it here until that whole building becomes a fire station. I'm not saying that that's the best check mark, but that is, you know, that is something to gauge by. I just feel like when I'm looking at those higher population numbers, again, there might have been something just in the way the world was working at the time. But also, I do feel we're kind of on the low end of population for that.
If we do start in 2027 on construction on public services building, then July 1st, they would start by then.
Yeah, I mean,
I know that that's not your primary point,
right.
and
Hypothetically, that is a great timeline, and I hope that it would be on.
No, I get what you're saying though.
There's just something about it that seems a tad premature for me.
Are these estimated populations, are these the cities or the service areas? Because we also service the townships.
Just the cities.
But we have a payback agreement from the township.
I know,
too, so,
but, yeah.
But it, I mean,
But
that
it's
is
still an
population.
administrative cost, yeah.
Yeah, actually, it would be nice to see that number too, if we knew how many residents we were covering just outside of Carver, because technically we're covering them, whether they're paying us back or not. That's another number.
Yeah.
I mean, is it 1,000? Is it 5,000?
Yeah, it's not a number that's probably incorporated in Chaska's and
Yeah.
Chanhassen.
Because I don't think they would have had the same agreement with the surrounding.
Right, that's a good point.
So are we actually really at 12,000 or,
When it comes to fire coverage,
yeah?
that's all. It's hitting me again, like I just said, it's hitting me that it's maybe a tad premature with the population number.
Any other thoughts?
I have concern about waiting 10 years for an information technology specialist. It really seems to me that efficiency is gained through technology, and are we losing the benefit of that by pushing that position out for 10 years? What efficiencies are we missing out on because we don't have somebody dedicated in that role?
Well, Brenda, you mind speaking to what our current service plan is and how that functions with Loeffler?
Sure, we have Loeffler. They send a representative, is it twice a month?
Yeah.
Twice a month, they come out on site for 4 hours and guide us through some of those things that you're talking about. Maybe the computer's not working right or the internet isn't real connected, but we have somebody come out on site, and then we also have help desk support full-time.
So to me, that's great, but that's maintenance of existing systems. That's not really rethinking how a city uses technologies that are available today. And I mean, those are fast moving, and I'm not qualified anymore in things that I was qualified a year ago. And so it's just a question. I think the cost of having somebody in that role, city might realize that in savings pretty quickly in how we may holistically change how we do something. I don't know, but.
Yeah, I have a question then, because you're the IT guy in the room. So if we look at what we have right now, right? So we've got we've got obviously the day-to-day things, computers, printers, all that kind of stuff. Then we have does Loeffler have anything to do with our council chambers and how we, no, so that's.
There's a different vendor for that.
Okay. And then we have the things like, our social media and our website and things like that. if we had,
Communications.
oh, well, but someone
that's
that's
on
on
there
run
too.
that, I mean, I don't know, where would we, or what do we see this IT person taking care of and doing? I'm not against it, I just wanna know, like, if we're kind of at this level, what's the next one push that we would go to, and is it necessary?
You know, I think if we had had somebody in this role already, 5 years ago, we'd have moved to different metering system years ago because of the, probably because of.
Maybe. I mean, I would say
Those kind of systems.
An IT person that works for a city is probably somewhat disconnected from the utility side of life because we have the SCADA system and all those other things that are gonna require a specialist
Unless
as
you ask
well.
them to be.
I disagree with that. I
Yeah.
think a dedicated IT person is looking at all of those things. What we have now is we have maintenance of existing systems. And that's great, and it kind of takes care of status quo. But, you know, great that you're here to know about modernizing the metering systems, but those systems have been around for decades, and other cities haven't had to drive out to somebody's house for more than a decade. And what did that cost us over 10 years? All I'm saying is, I think this role is more than maintenance. It is looking at everything that we do, how we do it, how AI plays a role in that, what can be leveraged, what can be, like we look at storing things on a cloud, what else do you change in the way you do something? I'm not proposing the changes. I'm just saying I'm worried that we wait 10 years to bring somebody like this in. And do we talk to cohort cities and say, who have this, what have they done to change the way the city operates?
Yeah, we've had conversations with other entities about, you know, could we job share, et cetera. It hasn't, we haven't connected yet on something that would work, but I think your points are valid. It's just a matter of how you see them as priorities.
So we pay to have people come in and run this system, right, for the council meetings?
That's a separate thing, but yes.
Right, but we do, but I'm saying if we had an IT person, would we expect that they would do that and then that cost would be taken out?
That's a communications function.
Like,
I realize that, but it's running,
I haven't.
okay. I'm actually asking Erik, is that
Oh, well, I
something you
was-
would like envision that all of these things that would kind of
The
be
maintenance.
communications, but kind of that it plugs in, it's electrical, and it makes our world go round for IT stuff? Or are you considering more just like straight IT? Or
So there's ideation, what the city can do, but there's also maintenance, which we pay for today. So some of that cost comes back to us because we may not need Loeffler to come out
Sure.
every other week, and what do we pay for that?
I want to be mindful, we're just about at time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Um,
I didn't mean to
no.
bring up a whole,
Well, it's all
No,
your.
it's
but I think we should think about
No,
that.
but let's hold this over because I think that there are more folks who want to opine on this. I know we didn't hear from you, I didn't get a chance, so why don't we hold this over?
Yeah, great.
To the regular meeting, and with that, we'll hold on to your manager's report as well.
Sure.
That I'd entertain, oh, and we'll hold on to your council request. Well, that was your fault. Actually, it is. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second by Councilmember Conrad, second by Councilmember Pascal. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Did I
same
hear
sign.
you have, oh, sorry.
Motion passes.
Did I hear you have not seen the vacation movies?
No, I've seen vacation.
Okay.